There's growing pressure on Democrat Virginia Attorney General candidate Jay Jones to step down after Jones's 2022 texts were uncovered in which he fantasized about shooting political opponent Todd Gilbert in the head and wished Gilbert's toddler children would die in their mother's arms. Jones has apologized for the texts and says he was obviously joking since nothing spells comedy like dead children. So far, Democrats are standing behind Jones because it's obviously much too dangerous to stand in front of him. The Democrats dismiss calls for Jones to quit the race, saying the pressure for his resignation is being manufactured by right-wing news outlets, partisan Republicans in name only, independents, people who vote Democrat because they haven't realized yet what's happened to the party, Europeans, Asians, South American cartel members in their rare moments of moral awareness, primitive indigenous peoples who have no clue what the hell is even happening, chimpanzees in zoos who've been taught enough sign language to recognize a dirtbag when they see one, and anyone else with an ounce of common decency. Abigail Spanberger, the Democrats' candidate for Virginia governor, says she continues to back Jones 100% because to back him even 1% less would suggest she was nursing some flickering spark of conscience that might force her to change her party affiliation. In a speech to a group of anti-fascists and other fascists, Ms. Spanberger said, quote, "When I think of who should be the chief law officer of Virginia, I think of Jay Jones, a man who was once arrested for driving 116 miles an hour, and when he was sentenced to 500 hours of community service, he served every single hour of that sentence by claiming that working for his own political PAC was community service. So this is a man of integrity. Although I really have to look that word up because I'm not sure it means what I think it means," unquote. Tim Kaine is also throwing his support behind Jones. Kaine was himself the governor of Virginia and recently made headlines, and I'm not making this part up. Kaine made headlines when he declared that the idea that human rights come from God was quote-unquote extremely troubling and sounded like the sort of thing people believed in theocratic tyrannies like Iran. When Kaine was told the idea came from yet another Virginia governor, Thomas Jefferson, Kaine said Jefferson should be impeached. When Kaine was told that Jefferson had died centuries ago and was in fact one of the founding fathers of the United States of America, Kaine broke down and admitted that he was a complete ignoramus and should not have any say at all in how America was governed and had therefore decided to become a U.S. Senator. In a speech to a meeting of anti-racists and other racists, Kaine said, quote, "Jay Jones is a friend of mine and I know his heart. Yet even so, I continue to support his candidacy for Attorney General because the hunger for power has hollowed out my soul and left me with no moral compass whatsoever. And I think I speak for all morally hollow ignoramuses when I stand before you with this atrocious nonsense pouring out of my mouth, while even I look on with a kind of fascinated horror at how deeply I degrade myself when I sacrifice every other value to my political ambition," unquote. Now, some of you may be asking yourself, why would the Democrats, a political party whose members share margaritas with wife-beating gangsters, tell the police not to come to the aid of federal law officers when they're under mob attack, unleash hate on a conservative leader after his children have been orphaned by an assassin's bullet, and pour into the street to support a terrorist attack that killed more Jews than any attack since the Holocaust? Why would the members of such a party stand behind a candidate who dreams of shooting his political opponent in the head and wishes the man's children would die in their mother's arms? And if you are asking yourself that question, you might want to tell the zookeeper to teach you a little more sign language. Trigger warning, I'm Andrew Klavan, and this is The Andrew Klavan Show. All right, we are back laughing because the bloodthirsty cutthroats of Hamas have agreed to release their Israeli hostages, but the Democrats are still refusing to release their American hostages, so our government is still shut down. As you can probably tell, I have a horrible, horrible cold. I'm sick as a dog, so you just have to stick with me. And if I pitch forward into my computer, call somebody. Call an undertaker probably at this point. But hopefully we'll get through together, and I will try to make sense of things and for myself and be the cause of making sense in others. Leave a comment wherever you are, even if you're not watching the show. Just make something up. We don't care. Relevance means nothing to us. And if the comment is just reveals you to have a soul shriveled with evil, we will read it on the air because that's who we are. Today's comment is from RenHope9092. He says, I love the first 4 Cameron Winter stories, but wasn't going to pre-order After That the Dark until hearing that Andrew would love me forever. Now I have pre-ordered, and if Andrew loves me half as much as I love him, I'll pre-order again. Well, you've hit on something very important about the nature of this show and the nature of me, is that I can be bought. So if you're looking for my love, my approbation, anything, even for me to come over and wash your car, go on and pre-order After That the Dark. And you can see I finally got my own copy of the hardcover, and it looks they did a really good job. It's just a very, very attractive book, on top of being one of my best crime novels. And I was paging through it, because you get the book and you want to page through your book. And I have to say there's a love story between Cameron Winter, who's this agnostic former assassin, kind of a cynical, darker character, and he falls in love with this very faithful Christian girl. And it is really an interesting love story, I have to say. Even I was turning the pages myself. So please go on and pre-order it. You can get it on dailywire.com/Klavan. That'll send you to different outlets, or you can just get it on Amazon. It really is helpful. We would love to put this book on the Times list because, first of all, it would secure a few more entries into the series, and also it would mean that we put 2 books on the Times list this year, which would just be hilarious. All right, let's get to today's episode, America Held Hostage. We all know we're supposed to eat our fruits and vegetables, but let's be honest. When was the last time you actually got through 47 different fruits, vegetables, spices, and fibers in a single day? You didn't, because it's disgusting. You get it in your beard. It's like you feel bad. But Balance of Nature has you covered. These are not your typical supplements filled with ingredients you can't pronounce, unless you have trouble pronouncing apple. We're talking about actual whole foods: mango, spinach, turmeric, blueberries, good stuff. Here's the beautiful part. You can take these capsules normally. This is where they say in this copy, they're always telling the copy, you can open them up and sprinkle the powder on. I take these. The whole point is that they're in a capsule. I don't know why someone in the copy department keeps saying you can sprinkle these on things, and it'll change the taste. It's a capsule. That's the whole point. You get all the fruits and veggies you need in a capsule. All right, just roll past this stuff. Plus, they're convenient. They're easy to take with you wherever you go. There's no bags, no mess, no measuring, just clean, quality ingredients ready to go. Like I said, I take them. It's just a simple, straightforward way to get the fruits and veggies you need. Go to balanceofnature.com. Use promo code Klavan for 35% off your first order as a preferred customer. Plus, get a free bottle of fiber and spice. That's balanceofnature.com. Promo code, yes, it's spelled Klavan. Chapter 1, Prez of Peace. So just a great moment on Wednesday. Trump is holding a press conference, one of those grand, things where he sits at a table and the press shout things at him. And Pam Bondi, the AG, is talking about, I think she was talking about crime. And Marco Rubio comes in and passes Trump a note. And Trump calls Rubio over, and Rubio whispers in his ear. And here's this moment when essentially we find out that this peace process in the Middle East may actually have borne fruit. This is cut 1.
They're smart, but they're not smart enough. They have been covered by these liberal cities for so many years. And that's why we're all working with Treasury, with all these different departments, to find the criminal conspiracy.
Okay. I was just given a note by the Secretary of State saying that we're very close to a deal in the Middle East, and they're going to need me pretty quickly. So I will take a couple of more questions.
It's a pretty amazing, very dramatic moment, and you could hear the reporters shouting what's going on because he's got this note and all this stuff, which was basically trying to get him to approve a tweet, a Truth Social tweet. And but we at the Daily Wire, we actually had a mic on Rubio. So we actually got the full exchange, the whispered exchange between them. Here it is cut 2.
We're going to win so much. We're going to win at every level. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. We're going to win economically. We're going to win with the economy. We're going to win with military. We're going to win with health care and for our veterans. We're going to win with every single facet.
Zippity-doo-dah, zippity-yay. My, oh my, what a wonderful day.
We're going to win so much, you may even get tired of winning. You'll say, please, please, it's too much winning. We can't take it anymore.
I feel pretty, oh so pretty. I feel pretty and witty and gay.
We have to keep winning. We have to win more. We're going to win more.
So an historic exchange between the Secretary of State and the President. Actually, pretty amazing. Now, look, Hamas are bad guys. They are bad guys. That's the definition of what they are. And so there can be plenty of slips. But right now, they seem to have agreed to release all the hostages, living and dead, 72 hours after Israel accepts the deal. So that could be as soon as Monday. They might release these hostages, 20 of them still alive. And you know, they're going to have to trade some imprisoned terrorists, some of whom are in prison for life, so there must be killers. And there have been several hostage releases in this process, and the terrorists go free every time, one of which, one terrorist who was traded into freedom before this was Sinwar, Yahya Sinwar, who then went on. He was treated with incredible kindness and solicitude by the Israelis and then went on to plan October 7th. And that's an important thing to remember. It's an important thing to remember that no kindness, no concession, nothing is going to change who they are. And I'll get back to that and explain why. Because, you know, it's bad that they trade prisoners. They should just take the hostages back. But what can you do? This is the way it is. And there's still a lot of work ahead, and Trump's got to go and see if he can nail it all down. But look, it's a tremendous thing even to get this far, because if they back out, it's going to look bad for them. And Trump, it wouldn't have happened without Trump. I mean, Trump did everything right. He did everything right. He supported Israel because they were the good guys. That's one of the ways you can tell the difference. One is the good guys, one is the bad guys. Some people get a little confused about this, but that's the way it is. And, you know, he wouldn't wither in the face of Hamas, in the face of the American media spreading Hamas propaganda, would not budge, didn't let, Netanyahu run wild, kept him, at least contained, but without bringing the secret pressure that Joe Biden was bringing on him. So that's what Trump was up to, during this second anniversary of October 7th this week. What the left was doing, the far left will say politely, was celebrating the murders and the atrocities that took place on that day. The killing of children, the raping of women to death, the killing of parents in front of children, children in front of parents, the taking of hostages who were tortured in captivity. There was a rally in Boston, pro-Palestinian, pro-terrorist. I always feel like I have to remind people that Hamas is not an independent organization. They are a cat's paw of the Muslim Brotherhood and Iran, right? So they're the cat's paw of this tyrannical Islamist state, this terrorist state, working against Israel, but also working against us. Iran is constantly chanting death to America. That is their policy. That is their foreign policy, death to America. So, people keep saying like, oh, you're just supporting Israel. Like, frankly, Israel is our ally. There are people we're going to have to depend on if war comes to the Middle East. But really, these people are after all of us. They're after all the good guys because they are the bad guys. Here's what they were saying at the rally, the pro-Palestinian, pro-terrorist, pro-Iran rally in New York City. This is cut 3.
We did not act enough. We did not act enough. We did not act enough. Repeat after me. We did not act enough. We did not act enough. If we acted enough. If we acted enough. The headline behind me would read. The headline behind me would read. Gaza has been liberated. So our work is not done. We must show up. We must show up. Stronger than we did the first October 7th. Louder than we did the first October 7th. To make it clear that we are not going anywhere.
So he's calling for another October 7th. He's calling not enough women were raped, not enough children were killed, not enough people were butchered, not enough hostages were taken. We've got to come back and do that more. He's standing on the streets of New York where you can say anything, and he is saying anything. And as far as I'm concerned, I got to be honest here. I really have lost all my sense. I mean, look, it's very important that we have due process. It's very important that we follow the Constitution. But in certain cases, if a bulldozer showed up and picked these guys up and dumped them in some other country or just in the ocean, I would kind of say, well, that was a shame. That was too bad. I disapprove. I disapprove. I was strong. I write a strong letter to the editor condemning that action, and then forget all about it, because they're calling for murder. They're calling for mass murder, and these are the people that the Democrat Party are kowtowing to while Trump is bringing peace. I mean, it's just true. It's like, Jonah Goldberg was tweeting, well, I approve of this thing, but it's ridiculous to approve of everything Trump does. Not a question of approving of everything Trump does. You wonder, some people wonder why I pick on Tucker and Candace, and they think I'm being too tough on them for the things they say about Israel being in control of America, which is a joke, or being a pedophilic nation. Just Looney Tunes stuff, just complete Looney Tunes stuff. Tucker saying that Hamas doesn't look like a terrorist organization. It just looks like a political organization. Obviously, and you wonder why I let that be a cause of division among us. And they were saying all this stuff this week. I think it was Kansas. I worry about Kansas because I've seen this Jew hatred take over a person before, a friend of mine who had been canceled in his job. And I did what I could to help him, but it wasn't very much. And one day he started saying a few things, and then suddenly he was saying this stuff that was completely insane. And I tried to reach out to him, and he was just gone. It was the closest thing to watching The Exorcist that I've ever seen, where I just thought, oh, this is, some kind of spiritual thing. And it's worrisome to watch this happen to people. I'm sure, last week I was talking about America drowning in fantasy. And I'm sure you know the line from the New Testament, from Ephesians, our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. In other words, it's not people we're picking on. It's not personalities. Ooh, I don't like Tucker. I don't like Canada. It's not true. I don't have that, real feelings about that at all. But the things that they say, when you talk about spiritual forces, and I do believe there are invisible spiritual forces, but they operate in the real world. They're not like ghosts, little foggy things that like float around. They're ideas. They are ideas. They assault the mind. That's how they get into the mind, is they get in through the things that you think and the things that you see, and they take over your mind. They can't take over your body. They can't just seize your body. They're not going to just seize your body. They get into your mind, and that takes over your body, and your mind takes over your body. And that's the kind of spiritual forces we're talking about. That's how they appear. It is not their nature. It is not their essential self, but it is how they appear in human life. And that's why you shouldn't be fooled by people who argue by pointing out bad things that people do. People can do bad things that are disqualifying, where you just say, this guy wished this person's children dead. We're not going to elect him to be the Attorney General of Virginia. But you hear people who hate the Daily Wire, which is a very tight Venn diagram with some of these Jew haters because of Ben, I guess. But they'll say, Ben Shapiro, here's a guy, Ben Shapiro, and with Jeremy Boring, the two of them together really built this wonderful company, which has been a huge force in breaking the monopoly of the left on all our cultural outlets. And they'll say, well, yes, but he recommended the vaccine. So, or they'll say of me, which falsely they say of me, that I claim that saying Christ the King was anti-Semitic when I never said, I always said the opposite of that. But the question that we should always be asking is, what are the ideas that govern the people we're talking about? What does Ben stand for? What do I stand for? And obviously we stand for the ordered liberty that has grown out of biblical values over a long time. That's what we stand for. And Israel basically stands for those things. And, the Jew haters are always saying, oh, it's all right to you're saying I can't criticize Israel. Nobody cares if you criticize Israel. Plenty of people criticize Israel. It has nothing to do with it. When you criticize Israel at that essential spiritual level, it's a lie. I get suspicious because it's not true. I've been there. It's a free country and an ethical one, and that's what we care about. Will we always agree with them? No. Will our interests always be their interests? No. But that's not what we're talking about when you call them, an occult nation or something like that. It's ridiculous when you say Hamas. When Tucker said Sharia law, it doesn't look that bad to me. He said kind of sardonically. What does Hamas stand for? This is the thing about the two-state solution. Part of this deal is that maybe down the line that we'll talk about a two-state solution. But that's not really what they stand for. They don't care. They don't believe in a two-state solution. Their problem is not something we can fix. When you think that it's a person's grievance, this is the way the left always thinks. Well, we have to figure out, why they don't have a homeland, why they don't have employment, why they're in poverty. No, we don't. They have an ideology. They have an idea. They are grown-up people with an idea, and that idea demands the death of every Jew and the death or conversion or enslavement of every non-Muslim. Give them Gaza. They gave them Gaza. They didn't turn Gaza into a tourist haven on the Mediterranean so they could all feed their children and live happy lives. They turned it into a terrorist outpost. And if you give them a Palestinian state, they will do the same thing with that, because it's not about their complaints. It's about their ideas. Ben and I can argue about what the moral order entails. We argue about it all the time. Every time I see him, we get into some kind of argument about this. But the reason we can debate it is because we see the same invisible reality. We are literally both on the side of the biblical angels, even if being human, we get it wrong what the angels want from us. Everybody does, but we try, and we have a language that we can speak. George W. Bush's big mistake when he thought he was going to turn the Middle East into a Democrat paradise is that all of these things grew out of Enlightenment Christianity. I mean, the Enlightenment grew out of Christianity, and Enlightenment Christianity gave birth to the United States. And you can share some of that. You don't have to have invented the light bulb to use the light bulb. But if you have an underlying ideology that includes the death of the people you oppose, you can't be reasoned with. And Hamas has that. And so does a wide swath of the left wing that now controls the Democrat Party. This debate, I know I've hit on this before, but still, this debate about who is violent, you can find violent right-wingers, but where is the violent embedded? Where is it threaded into the idea that is possessing the party? And that is on the left. Let's talk about ethos, because ethos is where you want to get your insurance, and you definitely want to get insurance. I was very young when I first got life insurance, and someone explained to me that I was going to die. And of course, I beat him senseless, but then I realized he might have been right. Maybe I'm sorry now that I did that, because he may be right. There may come a time when I will die. Fortunately, I now no longer believe that, but still, then I got life insurance. Why? Because you don't want to leave the people you love without a support. You don't want to leave them in the lurch when they're mourning, when things are troubled. You want to make sure they have coverage. Getting life insurance gives you something unexpected, which is peace of mind that lets you be fully present now. Instead of lying awake worrying about what ifs, you can lie awake doing something else or create memories with the people that matter. Getting coverage is super straightforward. Everything's done 100% online, and there's no medical exam to worry about. You'll just answer a few quick health questions, and you can get a quote in as little as 10 minutes. The best part, you can actually get same-day coverage without ever leaving your couch. Depending on what you need, coverage goes up to $3 million, and some policies start as low as $2 a day with monthly billing. It's really that simple. No wonder Ethos has 4.8 out of 5 stars on Trustpilot with over 2,400 reviews. Protect your family with the insurance from Ethos. Get your free quote at ethos.com/Klavan. That's ethos.com/ you know how to spell ethos, but how do you spell Klavan? Because it's got to go ethos.com/Klavan. It's Klavan. Application times may vary. Rates may vary. Chapter 2, the free press versus the press. For 20 years, I've been hammering at the press and Hollywood and, the Academy, where all this distortion is taking place. And as I've said, when Trump won the second time, I realized that battle had been won. At least the stranglehold, the octopus-like stranglehold that the left had on our cultural creation machine, had been broken. And it was broken partly by the DailyWire, and it was broken partly by, all the other Megyn Kelly, Joe Rogan. But it would not have happened without the leadership of Donald Trump and just the fact that the guy is indefatigable and cannot be daunted. He's like dauntless. He cannot be daunted. Who else in America really running for president could be convicted of a felony and take his make-believe felony and take his mugshot and turn it into a T-shirt? That's what it took. That's what it took to break him. And if he hadn't had us dancing around and spreading the word, maybe it wouldn't have worked. If we hadn't had him in leadership, I think it wouldn't have worked at all. So this week, Paramount, which is now part of Skydance, which is now part of the Larry and David Ellison empire, which starts with Oracle, the tech company, and the Ellisons are sympathetic toward Trump. So Paramount has bought Barry Weiss's Substack called The Free Press for a reputed $150 million in cash and stock and paper clips and whatever else they had threw in there. And they've installed Barry as the editor-in-chief of CBS News, which is supposed to be, they call it the Tiffany Network, it's supposed to be the New York Times of the airwaves, which opens the question is, what is the New York Times of the New York Times? So Barry issued a statement. Now, Barry issued a statement saying she would hold meetings at CBS and listen to what was going on, but what she was trying to create was journalism that reports on the world as it actually is, journalism that is fair, fearless, and factual, journalism that respects our audience enough to tell the truth plainly wherever it leads, journalism that holds both. That's an important one, by the way, is what she's saying is don't manipulate the audience to get them to think what you want them to think. Just tell the truth. Journalism that holds both American political parties to equal scrutiny, journalism that embraces a wide spectrum of views and voices so that the audience can contend with the best arguments on all sides of the debate. Journalism. She just could have said journalism, but they don't know what that means anymore, so she defined it for them. And I've told you this before, that I'm weirdly connected to Barry in all these different ways. She's very close friends with my sister-in-law. My son knew her brother. My brother went to college with her father, and I've met her several times. And Barry is to the left of me. I would say she's a centrist, but left-wing centrist. She's gay, married to a woman, Nellie Bowles. They're both absolutely lovely people. I like them both very much. But it was because she was a centrist, and it matters, that she was bullied out of her position at the New York Times. She was called a Nazi. She wrote a famous letter resigning, saying she was attacked on Slack channels. She was bullied like in high school, and she was called names, and they put like an axe next to her name on things and all this stuff. So this is a woman who, like I said, she's to the left of me, and so she's right there smack in the center with a little bit of leaning to the left because of the cultural stuff. Here are the reactions from within CBS. A throwing up emoji is not enough of a reflection of the feelings in here, an anonymous CBS staffer told The Guardian. People are using words like depressing and doomsday. Feels like some sort of doomsday, another anonymous reporter to The Independent. What the F, an anonymous CBS source to Zedio. And the so-called news stories, which I've been reading all week at Washington Post and Wall Street Journal, the constant drumbeat in all of them is that Barry is an opinion journalist. So what does she know about reporting the news? She's just not qualified to do this. So let's talk about opinions and how they affect people. Here is the former main CBS anchorman, Ted Baxter, or Scott Pelley, I can't remember which he is. They're both virtually indistinguishable. Now he's at 60 Minutes, cutting up video to make Kamala Harris sound like she's sober. Here he is a couple of years back giving a graduation address at Wake Forest College. And what he's describing here is the Trump administration. So this is CBS's main face is describing the Trump administration, cut 5.
Our sacred rule of law is under attack. Journalism is under attack. Universities are under attack. Freedom of speech is under attack. And insidious fear is reaching through our schools, our businesses, our homes, and into our private thoughts. The fear to speak. In America, the Wake Forest class of 1861, they did not choose their time of calling. The class of 1941 did not choose. The class of 1968 did not choose. History chose them. And now history is calling you.
Very inspiring, uplifting graduation speech. But if you were paying attention to those dates, he's comparing the Trump election to the Civil War, to World War II, and I don't know what 1968 means to him. I mean, to me, it was when our culture fell to pieces. But obviously to him, that was a great heroic moment when they did whatever they did. So I'm not going to say he's calling for violence. I don't want to stretch it too far, but he's comparing it to war. He's saying that the election of this president is tantamount to the kind of challenges that cause people to go to war. So you can call Barry an opinion journalist all you want, but at least her opinions aren't bat crap crazy, okay? I mean, that's the amazing thing, that these guys don't even know that they are living in a fantasy. They don't even know. And they have covered, the great John Nolte, the Noltenator over at Breitbart, made a list of all what he calls hoaxes they've covered. So the Maryland Man hoax, right, where they're going to send this Maryland man who is actually a foreign gangster. Elon Musk gave a Nazi salute hoax. The Trump calling for Liz Cheney to be executed hoax. The Russia collusion hoax. The hands up, don't shoot hoax. The Justice. They covered all these things as if they were real, and the list goes on. It's like a page-long list. So there has been all of this ginning up of hysteria, and you could see that Ted Baxter is feeling that hysteria, that he thinks that his hysterical, pardon me, ladies, but womanish reaction is the truth. He thinks he's reacting to the truth. He thinks he has some business going and talking to these kids as if it were the start, as if somebody had fired on Fort Sumter. But that is the attitude that leads you to believe that violence is justified. And the ugliest thing the media has done has been the hiding of the widespread violence of the left. Because, like I said, it's not about, here's an incident, I'm counting up incidents of the left. It's whether or not, it's what do these people stand for? It's the ideas that have gotten in their heads. People act according to the ideas in their heads because those are the representatives of the spiritual forces that are always at war around us, okay? And so what are the ideas? So think about the little things, right? Elon Musk cuts government. People start keying Teslas, scratching people's Teslas. It's a very expensive car, right? And they're scratching up people's Teslas. Now, I admit that's minor violence, but where does the right do that? When do we scratch up your car? When do we, throw things at your house? I mean, when do we do that? I'm not saying we're better than they are. I'm just saying that they're the ones who are wrapped in this fantasy. Who gets threatened and hurt and chased when somebody shows up on campus to make a speech? It's not the left ever. It's not the left ever. And if you count each one of those things where I think it was Charles Murray's arm was hurt and other people have been terrified and had to hide and be carried out. I had to be escorted out by the police, and I'm a lovely person. Who does that? Never, ever the right. The right does not stop people. And they keep saying, the right is a terrible threat to free speech because Jimmy Kimmel's show stinks. No, we're not stoning Jimmy Kimmel. We're not throwing things at him. And the left has been doing that for over a decade now. So Trump wants to send National Guard troops into Chicago and Portland. And so far, I believe, the last I saw, which was a couple of minutes ago, so some judges have stopped him, and everyone is so shocked that he's going to militarize. Well, he's right. And the people, I don't believe the judgments that stop them are going to stand. In Chicago, the police brass are telling police officers, and the officers are really upset about this, not to come to the aid of ICE, federal law enforcement officers enforcing federal law, right? So they get physically attacked. A mob surrounds them. Here is the dispatch telling the police not to go to their aid. This is cut 6.
Send the cars in that direction. Have them stay put 2 or 3 blocks away, all right? Have them hold tight until I give you further direction, please.
And again, per the Chief of Patrol, we have all the units that, per 999, Chief of Patrol said all units clear out from there. We're not sending anybody over to that location. All right, and 999, just to confirm, 39th Place in Kedzie, they were saying that they were being surrounded by that large crowd, and they were requesting the police were not sending I'm waving off all the cars heading to 39th Place in Kedzie.
Again, those are the orders we're being given.
Those are the orders we're being given. They are not sending the police to help federal law enforcement officials enforcing federal law. Okay, so in Portland, so yes, can Trump send in the National Guard to protect federal law enforcement officers? You bet he can. I'll bet anything he can. You know, I do not think that judge's opinion is going to hold. I could be wrong, but I'm not a lawyer. But still, in Portland, you know, this is reporters like Andy Ngo, who was kind enough to appear as a fictional character in one of my Cameron Winter books. I know he's a busy man, and yet he took time out to become a fictional character in one of my books. And Cam Higbee, who I believe is associated with TPUSA. They've been independently covering the violence of Antifa, which Trump now says will be declared a terrorist organization, and he's been announcing who's funding it, who, of course, is George Soros. But the way George Soros works is he sets up organizations that take tax dollars. So, you know, thousands and thousands of our tax dollars are going to fund these rioters. Now, here is Higbee, Cam Higbee, Trump is holding a kind of a talk, and he's talking to reporters. So let's just talk about Antifa for a minute, right? These are the reporters who cover Antifa. Let's take a look at how the pre-Barry Weiss CBS covered this story of Trump declaring them a terrorist organization. This is called The Takeout, which is an afternoon news show. It's cut 7.
President Trump announced that he is designating Antifa as a major terrorist organization and recommending that those who fund it be, quote, thoroughly investigated. Nicole Sganga joins me now. Nicole, it's great to see you. So we use this word, and we can't assume that all of our viewers know what it is. So first, what is Antifa?
Well, the term Antifa is shorthand for anti-fascist. Now, the anti-fascist movement has roots back in Nazi Germany, pre-World War II Italy. It was popular in the 1980s. But the first time we actually see the term, the moniker Antifa, used for a U.S.-based group was in 2007 out of Portland, Oregon. And that group also gained popularity, if you'll recall, Ouija, after the Charlottesville rioting that occurred in 2017. There was a sort of resurgence back then. But unlike some other quote unquote terrorist groups, there's really no membership list. And speaking with experts today about the movement, they likened it to feminism.
So it was started out as fighting Hitler, and now it's just like feminism, right? So it's fine. It's absolutely fine. So thank you for your non-opinion, CBS. I'm certainly glad that you don't have an opinion journalist like Barry Weiss running your organization. I mean, they do not know. One, they don't know what they sound like. They don't know what they're doing. And the most important thing is they don't know that we see them now. They still have not caught on to the fact that they can send all the tweets to The Guardian. It's a communist newspaper. They can send all the tweets they want, but we know who they are. And you can tell us it's not happening again and again. Every time the New York Times mentions this, it's the alleged left-wing drift of the media. Give me a break. No one is fooled except the people who subscribe to the New York Times. And so they've gotten themselves into a business model where they can only lie to the people who are willing to be lied to. And so they have to keep lying to keep their audience, because those are the people who want to be lied to. So Trump holds his roundtable with the independent conservative journalists who are actually covering Antifa, Andy Ngo and Cam Higbee and others. And here's Cam Higbee talking directly to the press. Cut 8.
I'm attacked every time I do my job. When I leave my house to go to work, I am violently assaulted. I've had guns pulled on me. I've been bear sprayed. I've been beaten down. I've been almost killed. So my question for all of you is, how would you feel if every time you showed up to work, masked militants tried to kill you? Because that's how we feel. That's our lived reality. And you guys go and tell us that we're liars, the riots aren't that bad, right? I've never seen any of you guys on the ground. In fact, I've never seen anybody representing the companies you work for on the ground. You guys come to us for interviews that never get published. Stop saying we're lying. We're not. We risk our lives every day to do the job that you guys are too afraid to do.
It's a wonderful statement. I've seen Andy Ngo beaten, half senseless, and he's been in hospital with terrible injuries from these people. Why do you think they wear masks and carry batons? And these are the people of whom Don Lemon said, they're anti-fascist. It's right there in the name. It's like, if Hitler had called the Nazis, like, I love kittens, it's like Don Lemon would have been, they love kittens. It's right in the name. So look, this is what we have been putting up with, this kind of manufactured fantasy that is supposed to restructure the American imagination and prepare it for socialism, which, after all, is an authoritarian fascist system where the government gets to decide where the money you make, which is a representation of your time and labor, so where your time and labor is going to go. So that is what fascism is. They have the ability to control it. The only thing that makes it different than fascism is it announces that its intention is to make everything nice and fair. So if you wonder why I think it's so important that we call out even our friends on the right, and we don't have to make a feud out of it, and we don't have to make it personal, but we do have to call out really bad ideas, not mistakes that people make. I don't care if Ben made a mistake or I made a mistake or something, but actual ideas that are toxic because they're not real. They don't represent what reality really is like. An ideology, I was just reading this in Claremont Review of Books, that an ideology replaces the spiritual reality, the way things are, the moral order. That's what it does. And I've talked about that too. It replaces the golden rule. It replaces the way things work, and it makes people call evil good. So this is a moment, this urgent moment when we have this chance to seize back the culture, is a moment when only the truth will work, and only the truth will keep us free. If you are a homeowner, you need to listen to this. In today's AI and cyber world, scammers are stealing home titles, and your equity is the target. Here's how it works. Criminals forge your signature on one document, use a fake notary stamp, pay a small fee with your county, and just like that, your home title has been transferred out of your name. Then they take out loans using your equity or even sell your property, and you won't even know it's happened until you get a collection or foreclosure notice. So, when's the last time you checked on your home title? If your answer is never, you need to do something about it right now. That's why I've partnered with Home Title Lock, so you can find out today if you're already a victim. You want peace of mind. This is the kind of thing you just don't want to worry about. So use my promo code Klavan at HometitleLock.com, and you'll get a free title history report and a free trial of their $1 million triple lock protection, which gives you 24/7 monitoring of your title, urgent alerts to any changes, and if fraud does happen, they'll spend up to $1 million to fix it. Don't be a victim. Protect your equity today. Go to HometitleLock.com and use promo code Klavan. That's HometitleLock.com. Promo code Klavan. How do you spell that? It's Klavan. No E's in Klavan. I just make it look this easy. Chapter 3, CR. Now, I'm not seriously comparing the Democrats to Hamas. But there is a but here. I'm not going to let them off clean. They are covering up and inciting violence. It's not the same kind of savage violence you get from Hamas, because their entire philosophy is this rage-filled anti-female, anti-life philosophy. They always say to us, you love life, but we love death. Well, I think at least they're telling the truth. I think that's true. And, our Bible says choose life. And I think that is what we try to do and enjoy, and in some kind of amity, even working with people we dislike or people we disagree with. But if your only way of responding to people is to shut them down, shut them up, or kill them, you're kind of out of that particular ballgame. So it's not the fact that the government is shutting down. That's going to happen from time to time, and I understand the politics of it. Chuck Schumer, it feels threatened from his left. Why the guy has to be in government forever? Like, why can't he get a good job? Like, he could deliver milk. He could, get one of those ice cream trucks. There's plenty of stuff that Chuck Schumer is talented enough to do. He could, be an Amazon delivery guy. Those are very important people. And, I live off the Amazon delivery guys. And if Chuck Schumer showed up at my door, I'd be pleasant about it. I'd say, thanks, Chuck. But he just cannot let go of this power. And because so much of Democrat power is situated in cities, and because cities tend to go left, people like AOC and Bernie Sanders, they get a lot of power. And Nancy Pelosi, I meant to make reference to, and they get more power in the Democrat Party than moderates and centrists, who now basically, and it's not like anybody they don't have people like we have who vote against their party. They don't have that. They just all vote in a block. So they're being judged. I mean, this is just typical politics. They've got so hysterical over Donald Trump. They're being judged on whether they let Trump do something, But right this minute, the fact that they can't negotiate this is pretty shocking because all the conservatives, all the Republicans are asking them to do is keep the government running so they can negotiate with the government running. So they're not saying they can't have anything. They're not saying there won't be compromises. They're saying they just want to keep the government running while they're having this argument. And the thing is, they want to pass a continuing resolution. And it's called a clean CR, right? And it's a clean CR because it doesn't add anything or subtract anything. But the spending, the massive amount of spending that the Democrats poured into the budget during COVID has lapsed because in their charming, dishonest way, they told us it was going to lapse. It was just for the emergency. But now, because the winch only goes in one direction, they do not want to let it go. So just for comic relief, here is Pelosi with Dana Bash on CNN, and Pelosi is aggravated because Dana Bash is actually pressing her on the fact that there's nothing in this CR that shouldn't be there. And the interview goes on too long for me to play, but she keeps coming back to it. And Pelosi is really ticked off about it. She just looks like, why are you asking me all these questions? You're supposed to be my slave. It's like that is cut 10.
Every shutdown since the 90s, when I've been around anyway, has been a Republican shutdown.
I understand what you're saying about where the differences are, and they are very big. They are voting yes on what we say here in Washington, a clean CR, a bill to keep the government running for 7 weeks, and Democrats are voting no, and for the reasons you just said. So how are they shutting down the government?
First of all, it isn't a clean CR.
Okay.
So let's not stipulate to that. It's not a clean CR.
What do they have in it?
Going into that. The point is, Democrats who created Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, the Affordable Care Act, all of that, are now being asked, reject that so we can give a tax cut to the rich.
And this goes on for a long time. Dana Bash keeps coming back saying, well, they're not cutting healthcare funds. Those funds lapsed because they were and Pelosi can't handle it. But again, that line, every shutdown is a Republican shutdown. That's because every shutdown is blamed by the press on the Republicans. And Pelosi cannot get used to the fact that shield, that magical shield that has protected her entire career, is now falling apart because of folks like us and you, and that's why it's falling apart. So and Mike Johnson, who's had it, the House passed the CR, so they're just waiting. It's only in the Senate where they need those 60 votes because they filibuster. So Johnson is like the calmest, most even-tempered, most collegial guy in the world is starting to lose it. Here's cut 9.
We're not asking Chuck Schumer and the Democrats to do anything different than what they've always done. We've shown you the highlight reel. Chuck Schumer gave impassioned speeches as recently as 7 months ago in March of this year. He said, we have to keep the government open. It would be dangerous and harmful to the American people. He said after the vote, he went on CNN and said, I'm proud of that vote. I didn't like it, but we had to do that. He was right then. He is not right now. We're not asking the Democrats to do anything heroic. We're asking them to do their basic duty and responsibility, as Chairwoman McClain said. Keep the government open. The first responsibility, I'm sorry, I'm aggravated. The first responsibility of the government is to protect the people. And the people who are supposed to be protected are being completely cheated by Democrats in the Senate because they want to play politics.
That's Mike Johnson in a rage. So he's a very, very cool customer. I told you during COVID, and I've mentioned this a couple of times, but it's just true. The left thought that it was over. They thought their moment had come. They thought they could shut down churches. They could end free speech by kicking us off social media in the name of misinformation. They could riot in the streets and take away police protections so that evil white America would get the crime it deserved. They could finally declare America the racist, horrible country that it was. And I told you, they jumped the gun. They had not won that fight. And now with this rollback on their media domination, I think the chances are that, we can win that fight. And all you have to do is look. I mean, I have to think. You never know what people are going to say. I see people believing all kinds of crazy stuff. But right now, while Trump is close to freeing hostages from terrorists in Gaza, the Democrats won't even let their own people go. Let my people go, Democrats. Really. I mean, that's how socked in they are by the worst people in their party. In a world where misinformation spreads fast and the truth can be hard to find, Linda's story shows what happens when someone gets the support they really need. When Linda found out she was pregnant, she felt completely overwhelmed. Even though she believed abortion wasn't right, the fear was almost unbearable. She didn't know who to talk to or where to go. That's when she found a preborn network clinic. The people there didn't judge her. They prayed with her, listened to her, helped her see past the fear that was clouding everything. With their support, Linda chose to have her baby. Preborn helps mothers in their most uncertain moments, giving them the clarity and compassion they need to choose life. This is why truth matters now more than ever, because when a mother hears it, lives are saved. Just $28 provides that truth through a free ultrasound. This is your chance to make a difference that echoes for generations to come. Pick up your phone, dial pound 250 and say baby. That's pound 250 baby, or donate securely at preborn.com/Klavan. That's preborn.com/KLAVAN. Final chapter, what do you stand for? So Jon Stewart, former comedian, now ranting crazy man, lost it on whatever show he was on. I saw Rogan played it, but I'm not sure if he was on Rogan. He was screaming at Republicans. This is cut 11.
You just want that person to give you your country back because you feel that you're this country's rightful owners. There's only one problem with that. This country isn't yours. You don't own it. It never was. There is no real America. You don't own it. You don't own patriotism. You don't own Christianity. You sure as hell don't own respect for the bravery and sacrifice of military, police, and firefighters.
Now let's think about this for a minute, okay? We don't own patriotism. We don't own. There is no real America. There's no real America. So what are we even fighting about? That was kind of a tell on John's part. Megan Basham tweeted at him, "If you have to say this, it's because your side has a well-documented record of denigrating all of these things." And once again, Jon Stewart doesn't know we see him because Jon Stewart's party, which is Stephen Colbert's party, which is Jimmy Kimmel's party, which is every other corporate comedian and movie star's party and studio's party and writer's party and director's party, has lost their monopoly. We haven't won it back. We haven't taken the territory that we need to take, but they have lost their grip. They thought that it screened them when they said defund the police, but it doesn't. And now we do have a monopoly on respect for the police. They said they thought that it would cover them when they said that America is systemically racist. They thought they could do what they have done for 30 years, which is bully the rest of us into thinking, oh, I must be alone in thinking this is a bad argument. Maybe I should keep my mouth shut. I don't want to get called down to HR for saying America is not systemically racist. And maybe they shouldn't have hired Joe just because he's black, because he has no talent and doesn't work hard. They've lost that ability to strike terror into our hearts. And Jon Stewart notwithstanding, they gave us a monopoly on patriotism. If you think that America is systemically racist, then everybody who's not you has a monopoly on patriotism. We didn't vote for people like Barack Obama, who said this, is cut 12.
We are 5 days away from fundamentally transforming the United States of America.
We didn't vote for Andrew Cuomo, who said this, cut 13.
We're not going to make America great again. It was never that great.
We didn't vote for Bernie Sanders and Zoran Mamdani and AOC, who want the government, which is supposed to, see, this is important, it's supposed to have only those powers named in the Constitution and no others. That's called enumerated powers. The government is only supposed to have those powers that are enumerated in the Constitution. That's why James Madison at first didn't want a First Amendment. He said there's nothing in the Constitution that allows the government to censor speech. Fortunately, cooler heads prevailed and said, eventually people with power are going to want more power. These people, Sanders, Mamdani, AOC, they want to give the government the power to take the money you earn, the time you live, your life, your work, your sweat, and do with it what they want, right? So what do we believe? What do we stand for? I mean, this again, this is why there are certain people on the right that you have to speak against. It's not enough to say, I stand for Jesus, Christ is king, because people have done horrible things in the name of Jesus Christ, I mean, we know that for a fact. People have done horrible things in the name of America. They, I mean, the left thinks it likes America too, and they do horrible anti-American things. We're talking about ordered liberty, ordered liberty, which grows out of a certain kind of religious atmosphere from which the founders themselves emerged. It demands that people take care of themselves. It demands that communities take care of their neighbors. It demands that people take risks and suffer the consequences when they lose, which is something that didn't happen in 2008 when all the big companies crashed and the government bailed them out. Why? Why was there welfare for them and then from the same people who complain about welfare for the poor? In order to have that ordered liberty, we have to live. See, this is the thing. When I started doing the show, all I thought is people should be free. But as you start to think about these things, as you start to think politically and spiritually, you start to realize, well, in order for people to be free, they have to live in a certain way. They have to live in a certain way so that they don't enslave themselves, so that we don't need to support their bastard children, so that we don't have to pay for their drug addictions and their STDs, and their crime. They have to live in certain ways that make it possible for us to be free. When John Adams said, this is a constitution for religious and moral people, it's not going to serve any other. That's what he was talking about. These things, the things that I stand for can look different. When I lived in Britain when Britain was still Britain. I lived in England when England was still England. Their freedom was different from our freedom. There were things that I couldn't do there that I could have easily done here. Their freedom was different, but it was freedom. When I talk to a believing Jew, his God is different from my God, but it's still God. I still recognize God. That's why Ben and I can argue. That's why Knowles and I can argue. We are talking about the same God. And if I make a good argument, and I've seen this happen, and they've made good arguments, we say like, oh, I've got to go back and look at that because that's a good argument because we understand what we're talking about. But a God of hatred and oppression cannot be appeased with a Palestinian homeland or anything else besides the destruction of every freedom he hates. It's not the same God. It's not God. A political system that depends on equal outcomes, not equal treatment, but on equal outcomes, on racial equity, so that if there's 14% blacks in the community, they got to be 14% blacks in your office. A political system that thinks that people can have sexuality without morality. And it will not be appeased by the next concession or the next or the next. It is moving toward slavery. It is moving toward slavery. Look, I don't hate my political opponents, and I get a lot of gas for this, by the way. I get a lot of heat from people saying, you didn't scream at this guy and you didn't scream at that guy. I don't dream of shooting them. I don't dream of their children dying. I truly don't. Even in my heart of hearts, I never have those ideas. I'm happy to talk to and argue with and compromise with the people who are voting for the Democrats because they haven't got this problem. They probably agree with me about 70% of the time, right? I know they see a different America, but it's still America. I recognize the America that the people who sometimes vote for Democrats believe in. But Jon Stewart is just wrong. The radicals who are in charge of the Democrat Party, so the people who vote for the Democrat Party don't realize they're going to get the radicals. They think they're going to get the moderate guy. But that moderate guy is going to fall in line with the radicals. That's just the way it's going to be. Joe Biden is a perfect example. He was, used to be a fairly moderate conservative Democrat, but he was just a weather vane. He just followed where the party was leading, and he became a loon when he was in office. Who even knows if he was having his thoughts himself or just being fed them, but still. So these radicals, they've been sheltered by CBS News and the New York Times and other once respectable outlets that have been infiltrated by these radicals over the years. And there's no negotiating with them. There's no changing them. We have to take them down by competing with them, getting them out of the business. Look, they took 60 years to march through our institutions. So there's no panicking. This is going to be a slog. That we have won the big battle, but this is going to be a slog as we march through these institutions and take them back. Barry Weiss taking over CBS, like I said, to the left of me, still major victory. Elon Musk taking over Twitter, major victory. There are going to be more victories like this, and they're not always going to, we're not going to have news media that only tells us Trump is doing the right thing. Nobody wants that. I don't want that. I want things that say, here's what the left thinks, here's what the right thinks, but not these people who don't believe in America, because they don't. They're people who think America was never great or it needs to be fundamentally transformed. They have no business running the country. They have no business, running the news media and blotting out everything that is actually happening in favor of their radical ideas. It's going to take us a long slog. We've got to be patient. We've got to be absolutely we have to cling to our ideals and our values and be the good guys. We don't have to let the left tell us what that means. We have to know in our hearts what it means to be free, what it means to preserve the system that was handed down to us that made us free, why that freedom is better than kings and popes and people, telling you what you to think and believe. We have to know all those things. We have to learn these things. We have to teach ourselves when our schools refuse to teach us. I mean, they will teach you, about how to be sexually amorphous, but they will not teach you how a bill becomes a law. And those are things you're going to have to know. It took them 60 years to take this country away from us, take this culture away from us. It's going to take us a long time to win this country back, but we are on our way. Fish are good. Alaskan fish are even better. And if you can't get to Alaska, there's always Wild Alaskan Company. They knock it out of the park by delivering the best wild-caught seafood straight to your home. Each portion is perfectly sized in 6-ounce portions and packed with nutrients you won't find in regular store-bought fish. Once you taste the difference, you'll never go back. Their fish is 100% wild-caught, never farmed, which means you're getting pure seafood with no antibiotics, GMOs, or additives. These pristine fish support both healthy oceans and fishing communities while delivering exceptional flavor. I have fished in Alaska. I have eaten their fish right out of the water. It is fantastic. And this way, these catches are flash frozen right on the boat, so that preserves that natural taste and the texture and the beneficial omega-3s. When you join Wild Alaskan Company, you're not just getting extraordinary seafood, you're supporting sustainable harvesting practices in Alaska while enjoying flexible deliveries and expert cooking guidance that makes every meal special. Not all fish are the same. Get seafood you can trust. Go to wildalaskan.com/Klavan for $35 off your first box of premium wild-caught seafood. That's wildalaskan.com/Klavan for $35 off your first order. Thanks to Wild Alaskan Company for sponsoring this episode, and Klavan is spelled Klavan. Today is the DailyWire Plus series premiere of USS Cole, Al-Qaeda's strike before 9/11. I saw this, and it is really good, really an innovative story. It's the untold story of how 17 American sailors were killed, dozens were wounded, and how Washington brushed it off as a criminal act.
Al-Awali told us Al-Qaeda is planning to attack a U.S. Navy ship as it's refueling in the port of Aden.
There was a lot of warning out there to the ships. Did the Cole get that information? I can't tell you.
Bin Laden was getting very antsy. What could be next?
I don't think we missed any specific threats.
It wasn't if it was going to happen. It was when the United States was going to be attacked.
They were walking into a trap. I saw a boat coming at us. They were close enough that I could see them smiling and waving. Then the explosion happened.
2 men in it was apparently not seen as a threat.
It may have been impossible to prevent.
Osama bin Laden had essentially declared war against the United States.
Certainly emboldened Al-Qaeda.
Why were we even operating in that port? What was the intelligence community doing?
No one connected all the dots until it was too late.
People in the U.S. didn't comprehend that there was an organization called Al-Qaeda. People living in caves, basements, who actively sought to kill Americans.
I think our government certainly had enough of the information to have done something.
They were focused totally on us. No one was looking up the chain of command.
We had an opportunity to disrupt what became 9/11.
USS Cole, Al-Qaeda's strike before 9/11. A 3-part series on DailyWire Plus.
Daily Wire Plus members can watch the premiere of USS Cole, Al-Qaeda's strike before 9/11 right now. If you're not a member, you can get 40% off a new Daily Wire Plus annual membership with code FALL40 at dailywire.com/subscribe. Take a look at this. You'll like this. Klavan clapbacks.
What network would you say is the worst, if I could ask?
MSNBC for sure.
Oh, they're terrible. I agree.
Unfair. MSNBC is not the worst network because it's openly crazy and left-wing. It says we are crazy and left-wing, and then they say crazy left-wing stuff. It's easy to determine, to spot them. I think the worst network, it may be CBS, because they're the ones with, NBC probably. All right. Dear Lord Klavan, my 13-year-old son is an avid reader and asked if he could read the Cameron Winter series that I've been diligently keeping up with over the years. These have been a blast to read, by the way. I recommended some of your young adult fiction. How old is he? 13. Such as Homelanders and the Mind War trilogy. He thoroughly enjoyed them last weekend on a road trip to participate in an adult recreational tennis tournament. I listened to Nightmare City, another one of my young adult novels. I was blown away by the theme and parallels to current events, i.e. the Charlie Kirk assassination. Yeah, there are parallels, it's true. I found Nightmare City a redemptive and inspiring story and found myself deeply moved in the climax. What other novels of yours might you recommend to a middle schooler or adult reader who was not familiar with your work prior to the Daily Wire? Thanks, Jonathan. I'm always very careful about this, Jonathan. It's really important that, you make sure they get stuff that I wrote for young adults, because my stuff that's for adults is for adults. And sometimes, I try and keep the language clean, and sometimes I don't. If I feel that that's the way I just let the story tell itself. And so sometimes you're going to see stuff that's very sexual, very violent, and the adult stuff. So I wrote 2 series for young adults, The Homelanders and Mind War. And those are the 2 series. And then I wrote 3 one-offs. I wrote If We Survive, which I just reread, because I was thinking of doing some other stuff with it, and it's entertaining. Crazy Dangerous, Nightmare City, and it feels like there may be one more, but maybe there wasn't. Yeah, maybe not. So those are the only ones. And other than that, they're all for adults. For adults, true crime, all of the Cameron Winter books, Werewolf Cop, Another Kingdom. There's and the Weiss Bishop books. They're good books. I think they're actually some of the best around. I'm proud of them, and I think I'm good at what I do, as I won't lie about it. Andrew, Mr. Clement, I'd like your thoughts. We've been dealing with Muslim terrorists since the Barbary Pirates, going back to Thomas Jefferson. Given this history and the fact that their texts teach to torture and murder infidels, do you think Muslims seeking American citizenship should be required to denounce Islam? Love your show and all you do. Listen, I know this is a very, very difficult question because we have our values, which is freedom of religion, and and Islamists have their values, which is kill everybody. So who doesn't agree with us? But that's not, Islamists are not Islamic people, and there's plenty of nice Islamic people in America. So I do think we have a right to question people about their beliefs. And I think Sharia law is bad. I think when Tucker Carlson says, Sharia law sounds good to me, there's no crime, no, Sharia law is a terrible, terrible thing. Anything that does not allow women freedom, I don't think women should be allowed to go masked in America. I don't think anybody should be allowed to wear a mask in America on the street. But I think we should be able to quiz people who come in and find out why they're coming in. When I moved to England, I didn't immigrate there. I didn't go to stay, but they questioned me, who I was, where my money was coming from. Was I going to live off their services? And what I believed in, and all of this stuff. And they were nice about it, but they made a thorough sweep. We don't need people marching in here by the millions, so we can't question them, and we should question them. And this is one of the things we should question them. We should say, look, you can't just say it's a religion because somebody says it's a religion. Satanism is not a religion because you don't worship God, you worship Satan. So we don't have to be like idiots. The Constitution is not a suicide pact. And we can question Muslims, I think, about why they're coming here, right? Because if you're coming here because you're a technician and you get a great job, that's one thing. But if you're coming here because you're running away from another country, but you want to bring that ideology here, no. So I do think we have to address this and address it honestly. All right, become a member today. Go to dailywire.com/subscribe and use code Klavan at checkout for 2 months free on all annual plans, or face immediate exile into the Klavanless week. If you become a member, then you'll have the member block, and then you'll face the exile into the endless darkness of Klavanlessness. However, you should become a member because we'd love you to do that and help us out and support us. And for those of you who already are, come on over to Member Block.